So we are in line.
Thank you. Hello, friends. This is your course instructor, Prof. Dhanavel, for your course on poetry. We are meeting here to have some live interaction so that you can ask questions and share your thoughts. I'm so glad to see that two of the learners have raised questions, two interesting questions. One certainly I can answer very well. The other one, you have to contact our NPTEL admin to get more clarity. Let's begin with the first question. Here is a learner called Amrita Varshini, and the candidate has asked this question: how should a poet be? We can understand this question in different ways. So I have asked a few questions like, who is a poet? What is a poem? What does a poet require then? And then finally, I have come to the question, how should a poet be? It also entails the question, what is poetry? And you have all these answers in our course. Still, we are attempting to clarify this question for you. A poet is a person who composes poems. A poem is a powerful verbal art, linguistically, creatively, rhetorically, and it is constructed by the poet. We have a visual medium, we have a verbal medium. Poetry, because it uses the language, is certainly a verbal art. Then what does a poet require to write his or her poems? A poet needs language, a poet needs some kind of imaginative ability. Not only that, a poet also needs some rhetorical mastery. That means certain ways in which the poet can really touch the heart of the reader and persuade the reader to believe in whatever the poet tries to convey. So we can understand that a poet needs diction, that is good command of the language, especially exact words in the exact place, the right words in the right place, or the best words in the best place, as many poets have said. Particularly Coleridge has said the best words in the best place is poetry. So a poet must be able to know which is a best word and put that word in the best place, then he can write poetry. Most importantly, a poet must have this inventive power. What does this inventive power refer to? It refers to the ability to create new images, metaphors, similes, original uses of language. So only when the writer is original in coining new images, then that poet can withstand the test of time. One can write poetry that is that may be called versification, but true poetry, good poetry, is all about inventing new ways of expressing old ideas. Plus, we also need this rhetorical structure or rhetorical devices. There are certain ways in which our poets use language using the conventions of creativity as we find in rhetoric. So we call them poetic devices. We will see some of them as we look at some sample poems today. So we need words, we need some themes or ideas. We also need some forms, poetic forms like ode, sonnet, villanelle, dramatic monologue, elegy, pastoral elegy. We have so many forms of poetry, but then some poets can mix and match, and then they can come out with new ideas like lyric on the one hand and ballad on the other hand. Putting them together, Wordsworth and Coleridge came up with the idea of lyrical ballads. So finally, now we come to our learner's question, how should a poet be? We understand this poet to be a strong poet, not an ordinary poet who will be forgotten tomorrow. A strong poet or a great poet should be original. Original in the use of language, original in creativity, that is use of imagination, original in the employment of rhetorical devices as well. And in addition to all this, the poet must be able to experiment with language, experiment with form, experiment with the different kinds of images, explore the new images using knowledge derived from science and technology that is advancing rapidly today. And finally, a strong poet should be able to test the expressive power of language. He should go beyond the limits of language and set new standards for the poets to come. So we hope we have answered the question of Amurtha Varshini. The question is, how should a poet be? A poet should be original, a poet should be experimental, and a poet should be exploratory and test the limits of language. We have a poet in our course called Rukmani Baya Nair, who in fact has his aim of testing the limits of language for writing poetry. Now let's move to the second question. Our second question is from a learner called Malahat Jahan. This learner has asked this question: is it possible to have extended submission dates for assignments? This question can very well be answered by our NPTEL administration team. So I am sure your question will be answered. But in general, we must understand we have many courses, we have fixed timetable or schedule, and we have to complete all activities. A large team is working on this, and it would be very difficult for them to change dates as and when the candidates need it. So if you want to manage the schedule, then you should find out the exact dates well in advance and then plan your time well so that you can submit your assignment according to your convenience, but within the stipulated date. That would be the best strategy for a good student. Sometimes we may have some difficulties. In such cases, please do inform the NPTEL admin and try to find a way in which you can manage. I hope this question is also answered for you. Now we come to our course, Poetry. It's a 12-week course. I'm sure all of you are now in the 11th week of our course, or at least 10th week you have completed. We have 12 graded assignments, and also we have 12 practice assignments. If you do these assignments, both practice and graded assignments, you will certainly learn quite a lot about poetry. We also have this live interaction session for clarifying doubts or listening to your own concerns that you may have. We also have this end semester examination where you have to take the test for 3 hours in a stipulated center. We have in this course 3 forms of poetry, that is poetry from 3 countries, that is Britain, America, that is US, and of course our own country, India. Let's see some more details about the different kinds of poems that we have. We have poets from 3 major countries. We have both male and female poets. In fact, we have a module on feminist poetry. 1 week we spent only on feminist poetry. In addition to these 3 countries, Britain, America, and India, we also have some representations from Canada through this poet PK page, and another poet Judith Wright from Australia. In the case of British poetry, we cover a huge ground, that is from 14th century Chaucer to contemporary poetry, that is 21st century. You can understand the difficulty to cover some 6 centuries of poetry, or more than 6 centuries of poetry, including this 21st century. It's really tough, but we have managed to give a sample of good poets from different centuries, from different movements, different schools, with the different tastes and moods. I'm sure you will have found some poets of your own interest. Next, we have poets from 20th century American poetry. We have two types here. One is by white Anglo-American Protestant poets, white poets, and another category we have poets from African American tradition. There are many other ethnic groups, but we don't have any representations for them. The simple reason is it's very difficult to manage to give all of them or even to represent them. It's very difficult, but we have given an introduction to American poetry where we have indicated the different kinds of poets and poems that are available in 20th century American poetry. When we come to India, here again, we cover different kinds of poets like male and female, both established poets and new poets. We have mentioned many. For example, Rukmani Baiya Nair is not so well known, but then we have included her here to introduce a different kind of voice in poetry from the Indian context. Yeah. Now we come to a very important topic for our course. In the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, many of you will be taking this examination. I'm sure all of you have looked at the question paper model that we have given in our website, in the SWAYAM portal. When you go to the course portal, you will get a sample question paper with 100, all questions for 100 marks. So let's see the structure now. This question paper, because it has 12 weeks, it has 100 marks, and we have 4 sections in this question paper. Section 1 will have 10 questions, which are of true or false type. Now, each question will have 2 marks. That means 10 questions, each carrying 2 marks, will have totally 20 marks for section 1. In section 2, we have 15 questions. These are called MCQs. That means multiple choice questions. We usually have 6 options, like what we have in our assignments. You have to choose a single answer from the 6 options. Here again, we have 2 marks for each question. That means 15 questions, each carrying 2 marks. That means 30 marks. In the next section 3, we have again 15 questions. Here again, we'll have 6 options, but the nature of the question is different because it is MSQ. That means multiple selection question. You will have to give more than 1 answer. Minimum 2 answers you have to give. You may have 3, 4, 5, 6, depending on the nature of the question. You have to find out the right answer. So we will indicate in the section itself, this is MSQ, and that means you should be alert. You should just choose 1 answer and think that that is the correct one. That is not enough for section 3. Section 4 is something different. You have to write. That means in your test center, using the system provided to you, you have to type the answers in a paragraph form. About 150 words we expect from you. You have to read poems. Here actually we'll have 4 poems, almost all similar structure you have to use. You have to read the poem and then write a paragraph on the poem, which will carry 5 marks. That means 4 questions, 4 poems, each carrying 5 marks, then you will have 20 marks. Altogether, we have 100 marks for our end semester question paper. Now, what do we expect from you in this descriptive answer? We have followed the course structure that we have done. Whatever PPTs that you are familiar with now will have similar structure. All that you have to do is to read the poem and write a critical appreciation of the given poem using the structure or method that we have followed in our course. The first point would be about thematic contrast. The second point would be about poetic devices, that is rhetorical devices. The third one is rhyme. The fourth one is rhythm. And the next one is meter. actually rhyme, rhythm, and meter, all three can go together. So this part you can call it the third point. And lastly, we have overall impression. So majorly or primarily, you have 4 points to address for every poem. First, read the poem, then identify the theme. You can do that by identifying contrasting words, key words from the poem. That's why we call it thematic contrast. And then when you examine the poetic devices, you may come across metaphor, simile, paradox, oxymoron, anaphora, antistrophe, refrain, polysyndeton, asyndeton, chiasmus, rhetoric, question, alliteration, consonants, assonance, and so many others. We have just mentioned a few here for you. These are the ones which are normally repeatedly discussed in our course. You identify the poetic device, connect it with the theme, and then look at the rhyme scheme that we have in this poem. At the end of the rhyme, at the end of the poem, at the end of the line, each line, you will have some rhyming pattern. If the poem follows a traditional structure, if it is written in a free verse form, you may not have any rhyme. Even in a free verse form, some rhyming words will be there. That you have to identify and explain why the poet has used rhymes in free verse. Then within the same line, we may have some internal rhyme. And in addition to this, we have something called half rhyme or partial rhyme. The first word and the second word may look like rhyming, but they may not exactly rhyme. For example, we have one good illustration from Wilfred Owen, groaned and groined. They start with the same letter G, end with the same letter D, but in between these two, we have different vowel sounds, groaned and groined. Spelling is also different. Now, when you come to rhythm and meter, you have to count the syllables in twos or threes, depending on the nature of the poem. And then you have to identify the feet, number of foot in each line. So if you have 5 feet in a line, that will be iambic, that means pentameter. And if the syllables form into 2, and if the word it gets stressed at the second place and not at the first place, that is a word having unstressed syllable and stressed syllable will have this iambic rhythm. So like this, you have to identify, and you have to connect this with the theme further, rhyme, rhythm, and poetic devices, theme, or even form in general, like lyric, ode, or dramatic monologue, and all that form. Also, you have to identify as much as possible, and then finally give your overall impression. So if you follow this structure, identify 1 point for each, I'm sure you will be able to write more than 100 words. Let's have some examples now. Here we have a sample poem from outside the course. All passages may not be from the same course or the text that we have discussed. Mostly, we have tried to take passages from the course, but 1 or 2 may be from outside the course. Here is a short poem of 8 lines. Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold, her early leaves is a flower, but only so an hour, then leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief, so dawn goes down today, nothing gold can stay. This is a simple poem from one of the best known poets of the 20th century. Participants, Vijay Bhaskar, how many are there?
Sir, 6 participants, sir.
Oh, good.
So 6, yes.
Very good. Is any participant aware of this poem? Who is a poet? Where is it from? Can anyone recognize the poet? It's a very popular poem. The title of the poem is Nothing Gold Can Stay, actually. The last line is the title of the poem. And we have some questions to understand this poem. What is the major theme? So from the first word and the last word, you can easily identify. It's about nature, true. So it's a nature poem, but then you will find that this nature has not come from nature itself. It is a piece of nature observed by the poet. So it has something to do with the mind of the poet as well. So identify the major theme of the poem. Then, if possible, normally you won't have any title for the passages given in your end semester examination. If possible, you can try to give a title like Nothing Gold Can Stay, or just gold or nothing, nature, whatever you feel that would be appropriate for this, you can try to give. Then you have to ask this question, what poetic devices are dominant? There may be many, but one or two will be more dominant than the others. You have to identify. Then check whether there is some kind of end rhyme or internal rhyme or partial rhyme, that is half rhyme. Next, we have to look into the rhythm and meter. I am trochee, spondy, peric, anapest. I have given one word as an example for anapest, and also one word for dactyl, that is poetry. The word poetry has that rhythm of dactyl. That means the first letter P is stressed, but a tree that is not stressed. So tree. That the next one, first one is stressed, but the second and third one they are not stressed. That's why you have poetry. Similarly, we have overcome for anapest. In this case, come receives a stress. That's why two unstressed syllables and then one stressed syllable. That's where we have this anapest. I am, trochee, spondiperic. These are simple ones. They take just two syllables. So I'm sure those of you who have read the course material, read about these terms, you would certainly remember them. Next, we have meter. Not normally, we don't have monometer, dimeter, minimum tetrameter, trimeter will have. Here you can see that here in this poem itself, trimeter or tetrameter or pentameter. In this poem, this small poem, we don't have pentameter. Pentameter means the line should be longer with 5 feet. That means 10 syllables. Here we don't have any line with 10 syllables, but we have lines with 6 syllables. They are very common. Nature's first green is gold. Just 3 pairs of words, and that means 3 feet. So you can identify normally this so down, goes down, today, only 3. So trimeter is common here. So you can identify words in this way. Now let's see. Is there anyone who wants to give some kind of answer, who wants to ask any question before we go to a discussion of the answers to this question? Is there any participant who wants to ask any question before we move to the answers that we are going to present? No. Okay. Now let's see the next slide. Here you can see colored coded analysis of the poem. You can immediately identify what is what. Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Green is gold. G, there is something. Her hardest hue to hold within the same line. Ha, consonants. That means alliteration. Her early leaves, flower. La, fa. You can see consonants again. The first letter is repeated in the second letter in the word flower. If the same word is repeated in the first letter, like ha, her, ha, hard, hue, ha, hue, ha, hold, then that will be alliteration. In the case of leaves, yeah, flower, that is consonants. Next, we have assonance. Only so, and the rhyme. I'll come to the rhyme shortly. then leaf subsides to leaf. The word leaf is repeated and the same vowel sound is used. So that's where you have some kind of internal rhyme. Next, we have so, so. When the same word is repeated several times at the beginning of a line, that is called anaphora. When the same word is repeated at the end of a line, that is called antistrophe. So we need to be aware of such terms and identify how the poets use them. Then we come to the last line, nothing gold can stay. After presenting a natural scenery to us, the poet is generalizing and giving a statement. First, there is a description, and then finally we have a statement. Some poets may begin with a statement and then explain what the whole poem, what the whole sentence is all about. Some other poets may give such a succinct formula, the essence of their experience in a sentence in the middle of the poem. So it depends on the thought process of the individual poet. Now you can see why green is gold. This green refers to some kind of leaf. So the leaf first when it appears may have the golden color, then it may become brown, then pale and dry, and finally it may die. That means it may become completely dry and then fall into the ground. Next we have a leaf and also a flower. Her early leaf is a flower. You can see the bud or see every leaf trying to appear like a bud. So flower and leaf, one changes into another or one appears to be something different. So there is a kind of change. That's why we have used that word transient. Everything in nature keeps on changing. That's the whole idea. Then leaf to leaf. Her early leaf is a flower, but only so an hour. That's only an hour. Then it changes. Then leaf subsides to leaf. One leaf becomes another, or one leaf becomes a manure, a kind of fertilizer for another leaf. You know how nature survives itself or sustains itself. Then we come to a word called Eden. This is called Garden of Eden. In Bible, we have this in the Old Testament, where in the Garden of Eden we have this. We have had this Adam and Eve and all that, and so Eden sank to grief because Adam and Eve ate that apple from the tree of life. They were driven out of that Eden, and then they were sad, and that's why only human beings are full of grief. Only human beings are grief stricken. All other animal plants, they don't have this sense of grief, but only we have. So this is contrasted with the happiness. That's how you have to identify this thematic contrast. Dawn to dusk, how time passes day after day. And then we get the understanding nothing remains the same, even if it is gold. That's where we have the extension of meaning from a golden leaf to the material gold, which may be more valuable. Nothing remains the same. Everything keeps changing. Change is the law of life. The theme of literature in this case is mutability. Mutability refers to changing seasons or changes in life. So this gold can also be a symbol of youth, symbol of strength, symbol of attraction, power, immortality, and all that. So even gold, which has some symbolic value, cannot stay forever. Now we come to the answer for all these questions. What is a theme? Nature and man, or nature is a theme, and it's not pure nature. It is a human being's understanding of nature. Time and eternity. Time keeps changing. Eternity remains the same. Change and changelessness. A day and night. Dawn to dusk. Remember, paradise and hell. Paradise here refers to Eden, garden, and then happiness and grief. When we are driven out of the Garden of Eden, we are unhappy. So the theme that we have in this poem is about natural happenings, that is the cycle of life that we see in nature, which is also applicable to human beings. There are a few poetic devices like this metaphor of green as gold, green leaf. You can refer to the color, of course, but then there is a metaphorical understanding of this leaf as well. Nothing gold can stay. That is where meaning is extended. We have allusion to Eden in the Bible, and the sentence "nothing gold can stay" is epigrammatic. That is also one kind of strategy that poets use. Alliteration we have in green is gold, her hardest hue to hold, dawn, down. Assonance can be seen in only so goes. Oh, that sound, vowel sound is repeated in these words. We have end rhyme in these words like gold, hold, flower, hour, leaf, grief, day, stay. Except flower and hour, all others are almost good rhymes, perfect rhymes. But in the case of flower, we have two syllables. Then that becomes a feminine rhyme, not a masculine rhyme. Masculine rhyme, we can refer to gold and hold. But where we have two syllables in a word at the end of a line, then that becomes, particularly when it has a syllable without stress, then that becomes a feminine rhyme. We also have internal rhyme, as we said earlier. Within the two words leaf, leaf, these two words appear in the same line. Internal rhyme, diagonally also you can see, but then we have looked at the horizontal line, the same line, leaf, leaf. It can be some other meaning as well. It can be some other word as well, but in this case, we found the same word being repeated. We can see something like a half rhyme within the same line in dawn and down. So first letter is D, last letter is N, but then in between we have some change in the vowel, dawn, down. Now we come to the rhythm in this poem. We have the sentence, first sentence here or line here, natures. We have put a line there. Once we have separated the word from first green, then these two are separated from is gold. So three pairs or pairs of syllables. That means two syllables together. Natures, nature, the word letter N, or the first letter receives the stress. That's why we have called it trochee. Trochee spelling is TRO. Spondy will have two words receiving the same stress. First receives stress, green also receives stress. So two stressed syllables, two stressed words coming together, that we call spondy. Then I am, we have her hardest. Her we don't give stress, but the next letter or next word, the first part of the word hardest, hard receives stress. So unstressed and stressed, when they come together, we call it I am. So like this, I have given the names of this rhythm as well. In the second line, you can see her hardest hue to hold. Most of them are I am, I am, I am. To hold, first letter doesn't receive stress. Dash hue, dash doesn't receive the stress. Similarly, her doesn't receive the stress. So all of them are I am, I am. I think 1, 2, 3. So we need to have 3 I ams. So that means trimeter. So 3 feet in almost every line we have, we can say, you see the problem with this autocorrection? Yes, trimeter, iambic trimeter. In the first line, you can see trochee, spondy, I am. In the second line, you can see I am, I am, I am. In like this, when you look at all other lines, you will find that I am is the dominant rhythm in this poem. So you can say iambic, because most of the lines have 3 feet. Then you can say trimeter. So iambic trimeter is the rhythm and meter of this particular poem. Then finally, we come to overall impression. We can say that this is a nature poem about the transience of life. Transience, the changes happening in life, evanescence of life, nothing remains the same. We keep changing with the seasons, we keep changing with our moods, and we keep changing with so many things happening around us because we can't remain the same. Even if we are gold, we cannot remain the same. So, in this manner, when you are able to put them together like this, then you can write 5 sentences, 6 sentences with a few connecting words. Then you will be able to write at least 100 words, more than 100 words you can write. You can have one initial sentence to introduce the idea, and then you can have a concluding sentence. Certainly, you'll be able to write more than 150 words. But your system will not allow you. System will have some specific space. Within that, you have to write. Now let's move to the next one. We have a different kind of poem here, not from the course. I mean, this poem is from the course. We have the example from W.B. Yeats. This is a poem of 22 lines in 2 sections. The first section has 8 lines. We have taken the first 8 lines here. And the next section has 14 lines. In our PPT in the course, we have split them into 2, like 7 plus 7. So totally we have 22 lines. We can look at these 8 lines like this, 10 lines, maximum 14 lines you will have in the end semester examination, not more than that. On the screen, when you look at the screen, you should be able to read all the poems, all the lines together, so that you'll be able to make some sense out of it. Otherwise, scrolling up and down will be difficult for you to form good ideas about the poems. So we have the first section from W.B. Yeats' poem, The Second Coming. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold, mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. It's a very powerful poem, one of the best modernist poems from the British poetry in the 20th century. And so we have to adopt similar structure for analyzing the poem. Thematic contrast, poetic devices, rhyme, rhythm, meter, and then overall impression. How do you go about it? Now you see some kind of understanding. You can check, for example, ta, ta, that is alliteration, ning, ning, that is something very interesting. That's why I have underlined here. We have both na here in between, in the middle, that is consonants, and this I we have here, that is assonance. This I we have in ning here as well. Turning, turning, widening. 3 words having this ning, ning sound that rings a bell, that announces the second coming. But it's a different kind of second coming. First coming is that of the Christ. The second coming is that he is expected to be of that Christ. But then W.B. Yeats did not see Christ, but he saw Antichrist when he watched this First World War and Second World War. So Christ is supposed to come here to give safety, redemption to people. But then when a very powerful person comes, like Hitler, to the world, then he brings destruction to the world. This gyre, some rotating machine, there is a lot of noise. The falcon, a bird of prey, cannot hear the falconer, a bird which is used to catch other birds. So the falcon cannot hear the falconer, things fall apart, the center cannot hold. This third line is very important for us to understand how this piece of line can affect an African writer like Chinua Achebe. Things Fall Apart is a title of a novel that he wrote. So we have things fall apart. For far we have identified here, underlined here, because in the second line fa is there, and second line again we have fa sound. So the same letter being repeated in 1 or 2 lines together will also have some meaning which we need to understand. Mere anarchy, that is violence, disorder, no sense of stability, that is loosed upon the world. The blood dimmed tide. Look at this. Tide is a word that we use to refer to the water moving up in the sea, and this is full of blood. So blood dimmed tide is loosed, and that means there is a flow of blood in the land, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. People don't have any more innocence. They have a lot of experience. That means fear, worry, things, grief, and all that. The best lack all conviction. All those who are educated, all those who have positions, they don't know what the future will be, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Passionate intensity here can refer to this sense of heroism, meaningless sense of heroism, fighting with another country, and also it can refer to lustful feelings that may find expression during the war. When we destroy another country, people may take the women and destroy them. Now we move to the analysis of the poem. We look at this thematic contrast. First, anarchy is important. Things fall apart. That's why we are giving a disorder first and then order next. There was an order, but today we have disorder. That's why this contrast we have to understand. There was peace, but we have violence today. Blood dimmed tide. Experience is overtaking innocence. That means people are cunning, people destructive, people are revengeful. Then we have cynicism, not conviction. People doubt everything. People don't have any sense of hope. And the worst are full of passionate intensity. That's why the best lack all conviction. So worst comes first, and then best comes next. When we come to poetic devices, we can see metaphor in that colorful image. Remember, nothing gold can stay. Green is gold. Here, it is red. It's the green is not gold, but it is red. Blood dimmed tide. There is water, and the water is bloody. That is, it has the color of blood, red color. Drowning of innocence. Innocence is an abstract term, but then here you see like a person drowning or an object drowning, just going down in water. Then alliteration and assonance we have in turning and widening we can bring in here. Next, consonants. Look at the this particular one. Da, da, da. These are here dimmed. Here also you have it. Where is that? Just to draw your attention, you can see in different places, da, 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 that sound is repeated. Blood dimmed tide is loosed. Then we have this epigram, things fall apart, and the whole sentence, two phrases are there, or almost two clauses are there. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. The center has lost its power. During this imperialism, and when many countries were getting independence, that also has its political meaning in this context. Another meaning is religion has lost its central hold power. So people are going away from some religious path, clear path. Then we have rhyme, gyre, a machine that something like partial rhyme, not exact rhyme. Gyre and Faulkner, hold and world, they don't exactly hold word. So you can see the difference between the two. This is not a poem with fantastic rhymes. Why is it so? When a poem has rhyme, you can see some order. But in this poem, we don't have a clear rhyme because this poem deals with a sense of disorder. Then we look at the rhythm. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. 5 feet we have, so it is I am. And then most of them are I am, so you can say that it is in iambic pentameter. To give an overall impression, we can say that the poem, The Second Coming, refers to a topsy-turvy world, that is a chaotic world where there is no order, no stability, no peace, no conviction. It's a terrifying world we live in. So it indicates a sense of fear among the people, despondency, that is hopelessness. That's what the poet is articulating in this poem. So if you are able to note these ideas, give your observations using the structure, you'll be able to write a good descriptive answer. That's the last slide we have. Those of you who are attending now live, if you have some questions, please do ask. Let me close this so that I can see if anybody is asking questions. Anybody who wants to ask questions? In the chat box or anywhere? Kuldeep Singh, some name I see, and then Ashok Upadhyay, I see some name. Anybody who wants to give some observations? I hope all of you find your core. I mean, yes, Malahat Jagan is here. Hello, Malahat Jagan.
Hello, sir. How are you doing?
We are fine. What about you?
I'm fine, sir.
Did you listen to me in
Yes,
the
sir.
beginning? I had answered your
Yes, sir.
question. Yes?
Yes, sir. I did hear I was there in the session.
Good, good, good. Do you have any other question?
Sir, I have a request to make. Will that do? I mean,
Okay.
nothing, no doubts about the course.
Okay.
In fact, after I signed up for this course, I looked up your name in YouTube and found courses on John Milton as well. So
Yes, we have.
Yes, so it is helping me a lot. So therefore I want to request that can you come up with another course as soon as possible so that I can enroll it for exam
For
purpose and exam purpose
which course? What type of course do you need? What kind
sir,
of course? What kind of on poetry?
sir, anything that would help me in my literature. That is, I am pursuing MA English
Okay.
Literature, core
Okay.
literature
Okay.
from EFL
I,
University, Hyderabad.
okay. I have another course called Literature and Life. This is all about literature. That will be somewhat less burdensome because not many texts will be there. Here, this poetry course is primarily meant for MA students. So you will have the course content is somewhat heavy. That literature and life, you can, if you want to, you can register for the course.
Yeah, because if I enroll for the exam, it will help me in credit transfer as well.
True. You will have it. That's also a 12-week course.
Okay, so will it be uploaded very soon? I mean,
yes, next semester it will be available next semester.
And when does that start?
Okay. Anybody else? Ashok?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Ashok Upadhyay.
Sir, my name is Ashok Upadhyay.
Yes.
Actually, sir, I'm not a literary world. Actually,
Okay.
I'm working as a primary school teacher, but
okay.
I find your this link, so that's why I enrolled myself. Sir, as I have listened from the beginning today, it is really you have mentioned my queries, what I wanted to ask you. Sir, I have a question.
What is that?
Actually, some my assignment are not good. They didn't go well. Marks are very poor. So can I resubmit? Can I resubmit again?
Could you please write a mail to the course admin? You can write a mail. Yes. I will also I will ask their course admin or NPTEL admin to respond to you.
Okay, sir.
This is an administrative decision. I can't do that. That's a problem with me.
Right, sir. Right, sir.
This is a decision which will affect all students, right? Not only the students of my course.
Okay, sir. Sir, my another question is, actually, I observed today's session. This is the second your lecture. So I missed my first lecture. So do we can have a?
It is available on YouTube. It is available on YouTube.
YouTube, sir.
The link is given to you. The link is given to you in the forum.
In the form.
Okay, in the forum that we have a discussion forum, right?
Right.
Where you receive information about this video is uploaded, the assignment is uploaded, the date for registration has come, register and all that. You get some kind of intimation every day, almost within 1 week. I think 2-3 mails will come to you.
Right, sir. Right.
Please.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I saw Kuldeep Singh raising his hand. Could you please come again?
Sir. Hello, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Kuldeep.
Am I audible, no, sir?
Yes, you are very much.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Actually, I have joined your course. I'm listening you right from the first lecture, and it is very helpful, personally for me.
Thank you.
But when it comes to literature, yes, when it comes to literature, other like we read fiction and non-fiction and all.
Kuldeep,
So is
your
it
voice
very
is breaking.
easy?
Yes,
Your
yes,
voice is breaking. Kuldeep, your voice is breaking.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
yes, yes, yes.
Uh, so, sir, what I was saying that when we talk about literature, as we are studying, so literature, other genres like fiction, non-fiction, they are comparably, easy to understand.
Okay.
But when it comes to poetry,
Mhm.
we don't know exactly what the poet wants to give us and in which context he is writing, right? So,
Okay.
sir, like an average reader, average learner like me,
Yeah.
who doesn't have much knowledge of poetry, much knowledge of language actually. So,
Okay.
what would you suggest that what is the best way to read and understand the poem?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Actually, let me answer your question now.
Hope you have got me.
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay, okay,
A
sir. Thank you. Thank
student who doesn't have much knowledge of language or
you.
literature,
Yes, sir.
how can he or
Yes,
she
sir.
read poetry? That is your question. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
You
Read
don't
and
have.
understand poetry.
Yeah, yeah. You don't have to
Yes, sir.
worry. Don't. There are some poets you should not start with them in the beginning. For example, T.S.
Mhm.
Eliot, you should not start with. Start with
Mhm.
Wordsworth. Start
Okay.
with John Donne.
Okay.
Read Chaucer. You will understand. Chaucer is the best poet. Anyone can understand. But Chaucer's own English, original English, medieval English, we may not be able to read. But in
Yes, sir.
translation,
Yes, sir. Yes,
read
sir.
Chaucer in translation in modern English.
Okay.
He tells a story, beautiful story. You will appreciate it much better than many of the modern poets.
Okay.
So when you read, what you can do is get a collection of poems, something like an anthology.
Okay.
Read through it.
Okay.
You will find epic poems are easy to understand. For example, Dante's Divine Comedy is much easier to understand. He tells a story.
Okay. Okay.
Don't worry. With all these references and all that, even if you don't understand all of them, doesn't matter. I hope without understanding Eden, you can appreciate Nothing Gold Can Stay By. That's a poem by Robert Frost. One is Wordsworth, another is Robert Frost. You can read, and you don't have to understand the whole of it. Even if some surface understanding, if you have, that's more than enough.
Okay.
Don't worry. That the
Okay,
course
sir.
is meant to help you. The poet
Mm.
uses some form, the poet uses some language in this way, the poet uses some meter, rhyme, or the poet doesn't use, the images are used. Some poets may not use any images at all. Prosaic poetry you'll have, with
Mm.
something like prose piece you'll have. Doesn't matter.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. And my next question, sir, when we read the poems in the beginning, right, 17th or 16th century, and we are studying, now you have talked about Simon Armitage,
Yes.
and
Mm,
other poets like
mm,
Judith,
mm,
right?
mm, mm.
So, what is the major, what is the major difference, we find, the in the poetry of the beginning and nowadays, the poets who are writing
Yeah,
the
yeah.
poetry.
Yeah, in the olden days, life was not complicated as we have now.
Okay, okay.
So more and
So,
more complications, complicated experiences you will have now. That is the main
mm,
difference. Human
mm,
experience is the same. We feel love, we feel hatred, we feel revengeful, we
mm,
have all these emotions.
mhm,
But because of mobile phone, our life is affected. So
mhm,
if you read Carol and Duffy in the 20th century, she uses the
mhm.
image from mobile phone.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You
You taught us.
understand?
Yes, yes, sir.
I
You taught us.
I tend to mobile phone like an injured bird, she says.
Yes,
I
sir.
tend
Yes,
to I tend to mobile phone like an injured bird.
yes, sir. In her poem text, yeah, maybe you taught us, right?
Yeah, yeah. So
Yes,
when
sir.
I read this poem, I was
Mhm.
reminded of Buddha. He took that injured bird and attended to it and got some kind of sense of kindness or compassion for people who are suffering, right?
Mhm. Yes.
The same feeling the poet has.
Okay.
Yeah. it's a sense of sorrow for humanity, which is not moving in the right path. What to do?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much for participating in this session today. I hope you learned something useful to you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely.
Don't hesitate. I look up your discussion forum every day, almost every day, but I feel disappointed because there is no question, nothing. Just I go to the discussion forum and come back empty-handed. Thank you so much, Vijay Bhaskar. Thank you for joining us. Ravichandran, one who is from the NPTEL office, we may wind up now, please.
Sir, thank you, sir. Thank you for this wonderful session, sir. I really enjoyed it, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot. Ravichandran from NPTEL.
Yes, sir, we hope to get more lessons and courses from you, because even if we do not appear for the exam, it's really a delight to listen to your explanation.
Actually, sir,
Thank you so much.
Sir, your way of teaching is, quite impressive, effective, And
thank you.
Right.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving us very insightful and enriched points.
May God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Ravichandran, please stop this live stream. Let's take leave now. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye, sir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.